All right, guys, I am pretty excited today. Pretty excited means maybe a little nervous too. I think excitement and nervous are feelings that people confuse that they're different, but I find them to be very, very alike. I have, I believe the 2008, right, Jason? 2008?
Yeah.
2008 CrossFit Games champion, Jason Khalipa. What's up, man? How you doing?
Good. Yeah. Just excited to chat, excited to connect.
Yeah. We were just talking about it. I think Michael Zanga, the BJJ Fanatics guys put, we both have mutual friends.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of carryover between the CrossFit space, the fitness space, and jiu-jitsu space, ton. And so,
yeah. And like I said, we were just talking about it. Like, I think we're doing very similar things, like what you're doing with your NC Fit in the fitness gym space. Technically, we're starting with Easton in the jiu-jitsu space because I don't know, man. How do you see it? I just want all people to look better, feel better, and like live a great life.
Yeah, I mean, so for us, we have three verticals of our business. We have regular gyms open to the public. We have corporate wellness sites that are only for those particular companies. And then we have our digital footprint, which I think is a huge opportunity in the jiu-jitsu space, the CrossFit space, et cetera, where what happened with us, we have 20 of our own locations, started saying, hey, how do we keep consistency across all these sites? And so we created our own app with our own daily plans, daily videos, daily everything. I mean, just giving our coaches the tools to have consistent, legit products. And, I think in the boutique fitness space, it's critical to have consistency across your locations. And a lot of these gym owners, they'll just like create the workout on the fly and is not putting their coaches in the best position to be successful. And I've seen the same thing in jiu-jitsu. You'll show up for one class and maybe you're working the side control or whatever. And then maybe later on in the day, you're working spider guard and there's no consistency in the flow of those things. I think that's really important.
I 100% agree with you. There's no consistency in the flow of those things. There's no consistency in how the phone gets answered, how you talk to people, how you deal with problems, all of that stuff, right? Like I hate the word franchise, right? But yeah. Franchises get their systems down for sure. And when you think of franchise, you think of McDonald's. That's why I hate the word franchise. You think of like a crappy product.
Yeah, but there's a reason why franchises are successful. It's because they provide consistency and you're going to get, if you go into one McDonald's, your experience can be relatively the same. And one of the challenges we've had in CrossFit is that the experiences you can have at one location can be vastly different from another. And so a lot of these gyms are having to rebrand to create their own vision of what it is so that they're more consistent, right? If you go to CrossFit XYZ and CrossFit XYZ, you might have vastly different experiences, but to the outside consumer, you wouldn't know the difference. I mean, same thing you said about jiu-jitsu a little bit, right?
Yeah. We actually, so in our schools, in our two bigger schools, we actually did CrossFit for a little while.
Oh, okay.
And like, I mean, look, I'll be honest. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. I had never done a CrossFit class. We wanted to get into it. I hit them up to start I hit headquarters up to start, like my own affiliate. I think, was that what it's called? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were like, yeah, just get certified and you can go do it. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And I just thought it was a little craziness that I was allowed to do that.
Yeah. The barrier to entry is really low, but I mean, you could probably say the same thing about jiu-jitsu, right? The barrier to entry, you can become a black belt, right? I mean, not even a black belt. You don't have to be a black belt. And, the barrier to entry is low in the sense that you don't need a lot of equipment. Specifically, like in a jiu-jitsu school, you just need mats. But the learning curve is so high, right? Because the difference between running a successful location and not, I mean, your population will tell you. If you're doing a shitty job, no one's going to show up.
Right. We ended up getting out of it. I have a friend who I met him at our level one. We were getting the level one together. We happened to sit next to each other. He became my employee and my head coach. And then we kind of sold the CrossFit business to him, and we're still homies. We're still great friends. So, it was kind of an interesting thing. And like we have a lot of crossover. He's like a mile away from us. So
yeah.
But yeah, he fell in love with it. Right. And he took it, and, he has left the name CrossFit just, I think, because of what you were saying.
Yeah. I mean, for us, we started off as, just providing CrossFit. Now, over the years, we provide a variety of offerings. And, like for example, for our jiu-jitsu community, our martial arts community, we have a program that we currently call NC45, which will soon be changing names, but it's just a fundamental strength and conditioning program. You're not doing any of the complex movements like muscle ups and handstand push-ups, because for me, I'm trying to say, hey, what kind of program can I give the NYPD, San Jose Police Department, and a jiu-jitsu artist to come in 3-4 days a week and get the best bang for their buck? And that's typically what we're producing for the jiu-jitsu community and for a lot of these law enforcement communities.
Where did this all get started for you, man? Like where, I don't know. Let's just say what it is, right? Like people go, oh, weightlifter, meathead, blah, right? Yeah. And how did that get started? And then how did it lead to what it is you're doing now? Because it's one thing to be into sports. It's another thing to get really good at them, right? And then it's a very third thing to, after your athletic career, whatever that is over, to take that and parlay it to something else.
Yeah.
Where did it all start?
I was working at the conventional gym all throughout high school and college, doing sales, marketing, et cetera. And then when I graduated from college at the time, I had found out about CrossFit, really fell in love with it. And I knew I wanted to open up a CrossFit gym. And so when I got out of high school, I was playing football. I was big. I was going to go play football in college, but turns out that wasn't in my cards, which was actually a good thing. And so I found Muay Thai and I found jiu-jitsu, lost a lot of weight. And then I found like the traditional bodybuilding, like a lot of people.
When you say big, how big were you?
I was 260. So Right now I'm 210. And that's, I don't know, 260 is pretty big.
Yeah, you're super. I'm like 255. So, but you're way
I'm a lot shorter. And so, then I found CrossFit, and I really fell in love with this idea of having a coach and a community and learning these new skills instead of just the traditional buys and tries. I was learning these things that produced a lot of power. And what I didn't realize at the time is, you do shoulder shrugs, whatever. But then all of a sudden I started doing things like thrusters and back squats, and they were just kicking my ass. And I was using this clock as an indicator of my performance. So when I graduated from college, I decided to open up a business. And at the time we called it CrossFit Santa Clara. I ended up winning the CrossFit Games the same year. And then after that, it just kind of propelled, right? So I continued to compete at the CrossFit Games for the next 8 years. Had a lot of success there. It was a phenomenal time in my life, but I also continued to build our business. And then after a while, I was kind of burning the candle at both ends, right? I was competing at the highest level in CrossFit. I was building this at the time. We grew internationally because we have locations all over Asia with corporate sites. And then I had 2 children, right? And so I started saying, man, there's a lot going on here. And so long story short, what got me to stop competing is my daughter was diagnosed with leukemia. And that was a really easy, I shouldn't say easy, but a really like shock in the face that said, hey man, you can't be doing all these things. You got to give something up, specifically now that your daughter's sick. And so I put the competition aside, really focused on the family, of course, right? And then had great people to support us on the business side. And so that kind of led us where we're at today is, competing at the highest level in the beginning of the days, there was no money in it in CrossFit. But as the sport grew, there was a ton of money in it. And I had major endorsement deals. But because I got started in it early, I had to open a business at the same time because there was no money. And so it was a blessing in disguise that, I had to do both. And here we are today.
What was that like? I mean, I'm gonna go back. What was that like with your child being sick?
Oh, I mean, it was pretty tough. Yeah. I mean, so I currently have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, and my daughter was diagnosed at 4, so she's 8 now. And the way that it works for pediatric or childhood leukemia is, for her type, it was a 2.5-year treatment plan. And so that's a pretty long time. And the reason is, after like a month or 2, your body actually goes into a state of remission. But they know that if they don't treat it for 2.5 years for girls, 3 years for boys because it comes back in the testicle. They know that if they don't treat it for that duration, it'll come back. And so, yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of ups and downs, but I contribute a lot of our success tackling the pediatric cancer to my competition years, all the fitness I've put in, and even jujitsu. I found jujitsu early on when she was diagnosed, and it was a great outlet for me. And I think for anybody listening who regularly trains jujitsu, by the way, I've been doing it for 4 years. I'm a purple belt at it now. Or anybody who's in the fitness space, we don't recognize the benefit of training and how it carries over into real life. When you're on the mat, you're on the barbell, you're whatever, especially for all the competitions I was in, you learn to overcome these micro adversities, right? Some dude's cross-facing you, whatever, right? And you're learning how to calm down, overcome, and move on. And that's in like a non-life and death situation, low key, right? But what you don't realize is it kind of calluses you and gets you prepared for when life really throws you a curveball. So I'm grateful every day that I had done all that because it helped my family and I overcome, this big challenge.
Yeah. I don't know how people who don't do hard shit, like how when life comes to hit them with some hardness, how do they overcome that? Like that one always blows on because for me, I always have to rely back on these, like, okay, man, like you made that walk to the cage, right? When you were scared shitless, like you walked, you can do this,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, nowadays where we live in a society in general that wants to, everybody gets a, trophy and we're trying to protect our children. I totally get that. But we also need to learn that in a constructive way, we have to overcome adversity and build those skills, because otherwise then life throws you a curveball, and it will, eventually it will. And you're not going to be as prepared to overcome it. And like I said, I'm forever grateful to all my competitions. I mean, I competed for almost a decade in probably, a lot of events, like a lot. And every single event, you build up mental and physical skills to help you overcome other stuff. And yeah. And, my wife is really the champion in the whole thing, like it also developed her skills because she had to learn to cope when she's sitting there in the stands or whatever, watching me. She had to learn that too. So the night my daughter was diagnosed, it was really easy for her to just kind of like compartmentalize, refocus, let's go crush this thing.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. Like you said, for the spouse, like my wife, fighting is so intense, and they're not nervous. They're not nervous for 8 weeks, right? Where I'm scared shitless for 8 weeks. So like, I got these ebb and flows of my fear, and I had to deal with them. And she's just like going about her life. And then all of a sudden it's fight night. The music comes on. I start walking and she's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like it just hits them. And they the people don't like the toll that takes on both people is incredible. Like it's not just the one person walking in the cage.
Yeah, 100%. And, and I didn't recognize that at the time. I didn't know, I knew a little bit how hard it was on my spouse. Right. But,
right.
And I had to, one of the reasons why, as we started progressing my career, I had to stop being as selfish. I had to recognize that, dude, you got 2 kids, you got a business, you have your wife. And so every year I would sit down and talk to my wife, hey, how are you feeling? What do you think we could do? Because it was something we were doing together, right? Because as many sacrifices as I was making, she was making just as many. I'm the guy in the garage, right? In the garage at 5 a.m. making noise, whatever. And then at night, right before dinner, and those things added stress to her life. And I had to recognize that. And that was a big turning point for me was recognizing when my goals and aspirations of competing started becoming a little bit too selfish. And so I was already transitioning out of the sport in that sense. But then when Ava got sick, I was a very easy, cold turkey.
Sure. Your child can easily make you turn and do a 180 on anything.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, okay,
Yeah.
But she's healthy now.
Yeah. So, she actually just had blood work yesterday. So I was just thinking about it. Yeah, she's doing great. And, my wife puts on a fundraiser called Ava's Kitchen every year. And, it's a big thing that we do. Now we have really clear direction on what we want to do. And Yeah, I don't wish my experience, I've spent a lot of time in the hospital, had some very scary, scary moments. I don't wish it on anybody, but it's grown my family closer. And now at a relatively young age, I could take that perspective that I gained for the rest of my life, which is cool.
How old are you? I'm
34.
You're 34. Okay. Yeah. You're a little bit.
I mean, my daughter was diagnosed when I was 30, 29.
Right.
I mean, that's a, now I have, you know what I mean? I got a lot of years to keep that perspective.
29, you barely know you.
Yeah.
Right. Like you're just touching you, like for real.
You grow up a lot, right? Yeah. I mean, you grow up a lot when you're in the hospital we probably spent, 4 or 5 months in the hospital. I mean, you grow up a lot there because you're having big conversations about big stuff. And so, yeah, taking that with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, man, for sure. Then that adversity, like you probably wouldn't wish it on anyone, and you wouldn't wish it again.
No,
but it so formed you, right? And it so made you better. And that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with when we're dealing with adversity in a moment, right? Like we wish it would go away.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think like I said, I'm speaking as a guy who competed for a long time in CrossFit, competes on a regular basis in the gym and then jiu-jitsu. Those skills are like incredibly valuable for real life. And I'm speaking as a guy who, has gone through the leukemia thing.
Right.
So
right.
I hope everybody keeps training, keeps getting after it, because that's a whole nother thing that you get out of it that you don't, if you're not motivated by 6-pack abs and whatever else, maybe you should be motivated by what it does mentally to help you overcome things in the future.
Yeah, for sure, man. Because let's be real. What's your PRs and your phenomenal arm bars, they can't really matter, right?
No, but that's right. Jiu-jitsu is great because there's a lot of self-defense in there, and CrossFit's great, a bunch of strength conditioning and whatnot. But what happens in between the ears is equally, if not more important. I guess
what I mean by doesn't really matter. You're probably never going to have to, how often do you have to use your, I don't know, what's your PR on your snatch, whatever that is, right?
Like 300 pounds.
You're strong as shit, right?
Yeah.
But how often do you ever have to actually use we pick up some boxes, right? Right?
Yeah.
Like jiu-jitsu, man, the self-defense is amazing, the actual skills. And they're great to have, but I haven't been in a fight since 2011. That was my last my last UFC fight. I haven't needed it to protect myself for a decade, and most people never will, right? Most people never will. So what is it that we're doing? And I think we're learning how to overcome adversity is exactly what we're doing.
Yeah. And you can make the argument because of your self-defense skills and because of your strength conditioning skills, you haven't needed to use them. Meaning one of my major goals in life is never to have fitness be an inhibitor of what I want to do. So if my kid comes up to me tomorrow and says, hey, let's go swim at the beach or go climb that mountain, be like, game on, let's go. I could be traveling anywhere in the world and feel very comfortable in my ability just to, if we want to go check out the city, walk up the stairs, I never have to worry about it, and that's kind of rewarding,
Yes. Yeah. For sure. There's nothing that you do that stops what you do with them.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's such a huge thing for me too. Yeah. I totally agree. Moving from your retirement, right, to your to this transition into a little more business stuff, what was that like after your daughter and after that?
Well, for me, I'd always had the entrepreneur bug. When I was really young, I started multiple different companies. I started this, I started that. I used to train on the elliptical at night with the owner of the gym that I used to work at and learn everything I could about the business. So I started the business directly out of college. So I was working at the gym, then I went right into my own business. And so I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit in the sense that I like that what I put in directly impacts what I get out. I like that idea. Right. And so organically we just started to grow and we built a really great team. And, so after she got sick, I was even more motivated to grow because now the more we could grow our business, the more people we can impact, the more cool shit and good shit we could do, right? We could do more blood drives, philanthropic efforts. And so it just equals this big universe that can carry over.
Yeah, for sure, man. I totally agree. And plus, for me, can you hear my dog barking or no?
A little bit, yeah.
I'm going to shut the door real fast. Hold on. Buster, quiet. All right, let's see if that's better, dumbass. I guess he broke out of his cage. I don't have time to go fix that. Yeah. Plus in the gym space, right? In the jiu-jitsu space, people teach a class or whatever, but they don't get to, what are they going to do with their life? Like your instructors, like the people that you love, and now I know, I'm sure it's the same for you. It's a great feeling to make them, they can have careers. Like some of your best friends that just fell in love with CrossFit now have careers in their life in a space where there was no career there unless you were the owner.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. And that's really how we grew organically, because we opened up one location and then we had a coach who was really good. And I knew that if we didn't provide him an opportunity, he'd go find it somewhere else or he'd create it on his own.
Right.
And so we pulled him into our fold and we grew organically that way. And I think what's really unique now, and I'm sure you could probably speak to this, is that as a business owner, there's a lot of, think about it. If you're a boutique fitness owner and let's just say your business makes, I don't know, even at the high end, $1 million in revenue a year, I mean, at a high end, right? Well, what's the long-term gain there? You might make, 200,000 from there, whatever. But after 10, 20, 30 years, what is your goal? What are you trying to do as an owner operator? And so I think you need to decide, okay, do I want to grow? And if I am going to grow, how do I scale, right? And how do I do that in an effective manner? And then this way there's an exit strategy of some type, right? Or maybe I want to keep it with just a single site, and that's fine, but you need to know the pros and cons. The cons are you're going to probably lose really good talent, because what they're going to do is you have this great talent that's starting to grow in your organization, and they're the baller. They're great work ethic, great community driver, great everything. The problem is they're going to get to a ceiling and they're going to say, wow, well, this guy's an owner operator. I know I can't be him because he's the owner. What am I going to do? And they're therefore forced to go out there and go do something different. So I think if you could keep them within your organization and create opportunities, that's a great idea.
And you might be creating competition right down the street for yourself.
100%. I mean, I've seen it time and time again where, one of the challenges with being an owner operator is, especially if you're like a guy who's never there. So let's just say you're not the operator, but you're the owner. And then you have a head coach who's the operator doing a great job.
I disagree with this. I'm interrupting you, I know, but I disagree with not being there, but go ahead.
So let's just say you're the owner, but not the operator, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden the head coach really starts to embody the culture, grows his own audience, and it becomes the, John Smith show and not the NC Fit show, right? It's the John Smith show. He creates his culture around him, and you allow it to happen, right? The challenge becomes then when John Smith decides to go do something else, he pulls 100 of your members with him, because these members aren't built into the brand. They're not built into the culture. They're built into John Smith, the coach. And so for us, we need to find that blend of being bought in on the coach. I think it's really important to have that.
Super important. Yep.
But also to more importantly, be bought in on the Easton brand or the NC Fit brand. We're a part of this culture. And the way we do that is consistency across all of our locations, consistency across all of our classes, and, having different coaches coach different times, et cetera.
Right. No, 100%. We do a very similar thing. We know we have our website and our email that goes out every month. Everybody's teaching the same exact thing, maybe not in our advanced class. We give some leeway in advanced, right? But whatever you're teaching, what you were explaining earlier, side control in the morning and spider guard at night. Yeah, that ain't happening, right? No way. That's, we spend a month at the minimum in advanced classes on whatever, if it's spider guard, it's a month of spider guard, things like that, so. And
one of the challenges for CrossFit and for jiu-jitsu that I've seen is that the coaches always want to teach the complexity. And the challenge is that we need to make sure everything has the basics, I mean, one of the reasons why I love jiu-jitsu is because I'm learning so much, right? For me to get better at the sport of CrossFit is very challenging. I'm at the black belt level, whatever belt level, right? For me to get better at jiu-jitsu, it's not that hard because I get a lot of gains. The challenge becomes when a coach really tries to overcomplicate it. So, I'm working in side control, everything's going well. And then all of a sudden they want me to go, from there into these positions. And I started losing my focus on what's going on. And I think what's important for both of our industries is to, review and really keep it simple and reinforce the basics. But as a coach, it's really tough because it's hard to coach the basics because people feel like they're boring, but they're not boring. And you can make the basics very high level, but everybody wants to shift over to these more complex things like barambolos. But you know what I mean? It's tough for both industries.
It's a great, probably in the same thing with CrossFit. I know it's like this in jiu-jitsu. Look, I have an amazing armbar or maybe an amazing berimbolo, right? It's really good, but my side control escape is awful because I don't have those basics.
Yeah.
I won't even try this advanced thing because I know if it goes bad, I'm just fucked, right? I'm just fucked. I have no defense, right? And maybe a lot of times with people with, I don't know, you tell me, does this parlay to CrossFit? We're working out. We're like, the coach is like, wants people to do these advanced things, but they won't even attempt to try it because maybe they can't even do like a hollow hold, right?
Yeah.
Because if you can't do a hollow hold, then you're not kipping, you're not doing anything, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a curse of the coaching in the sense that, like, as a coach, we always want to share like how smart we are at times, right? And what we know. And I think the really great coaches are the ones that can just simplify things. I trained with Buchecha not that long ago, and I was expecting him to like fucking come to the table with some great innovative stuff for me to get out of guard or whatever, right?
Right.
And all he did was just work with me on side control and just more pressure with my shoulder into the face. And that's all he did. And what I had to realize is that was an example of a really good coach where he was trying to refine a position that I found often. So he said, hey, where do you get in often? I said, well, I do some type of knee slice, get in a half, whatever. And so then he wanted to refine that. And that's an example of a coach who's really comfortable with their skills where they don't feel like they have to go to a next level of complexity because they could still add value in the simplistic ones. And I think in CrossFit the same way, really good coaches can take a basic air squat and really dive into it versus talking about such a complex skill.
Yeah, for sure.
Both, right?
And you need both. And look, most people, the majority of the people that are probably doing CrossFit and jiu-jitsu, right? Like, man, most people aren't fucking berimboloing, and that's cool, right? It's really great. There was no berimbolo until like 2010. So we a lot of people had a lot of great times with jiu-jitsu before the berimbolo, Yeah. So it's not a necessity. And the same thing with CrossFit. Like, man, most people don't need to be doing muscle ups.
Yeah.
Right. And they're not going to.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I went out and I was training with the Meow brothers in New York, and they were trying to teach me the berimbolo. At this point, I was like a 3-stripe white belt or something. Yeah. And I'm just like, dude, you're so losing me. But
how about mount escape? You know where I find myself the most? I find myself mounted. I'm a 3-stripe white belt. Like you, what? No. Hold on, man. No, like I put my hand on someone's collar and the next thing I know, I look up and they're mounted on me and my hand's not supposed to be in their collar.
Yeah.
Right.
But to your point, right? Strength and conditioning in general has been around for decades, and CrossFit came in and really revolutionized this idea of using a clock. And I think that's really unique because now instead of doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, it's now, hey, I'm going to race the clock. And they turn it into more of a sport against yourself, sport against others, which I think is very, very effective, right? Because you're pushing. But to your point, in 2010, they introduced this idea of a muscle up into a ring handstand push-up. This was new. And it's a very complex skill, and I worked it heavily. It was in the CrossFit Games, but
right.
But we were getting really fit before that was ever introduced, and that's just another skill. And I think for a certain population, skills like that, skills like some of the other ones, like deficit handstand pushups, they're exceptional because it helps these athletes continue to try and innovate and create new things. For example, if you're trying to win the ADCC or whatever it is, you need to have these skill sets. But for the average 99%, we need to focus on the fundamentals because they're not trying to do those things.
And it's not like you said, people have been fit forever without these things. Yeah. We're just trying general fitness, right? Yeah. I know for jiu-jitsu, right? What do I want? I think jiu-jitsu is the greatest vehicle to change somebody's life. Like in my opinion, better than anything else that's out there in the world. So what's my goal? Keep them training longer. Not for money, not for anything like that. Keep them on the mat coming consistently. If I have people barren bowling, if I have a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old barren bowling over his neck every day and inverting and stacking himself up, he's done in a week, right?
Yeah.
A week.
And what you just said is 100% directly correlated to CrossFit. So what's been the challenge there is that CrossFit's a phenomenal program if you come in 6 days a week, 7 days a week. If you want complexity and varied workouts, dude, it's the best. If you want to hit a bunch of different domains and you're really into fitness, you want to snatch, you want these things, it's phenomenal. But if you're coming in 2, 3, 4 days a week and you don't desire to do these high complex skills, what our NC45 program is just a basic barbell lift, a deadlift, a back squat, a press, and then a great Metcon. And so for a lot of people, that's where they need to live at before they go in and do these really high skilled, especially if you don't come in that often. You know, if you have a guy who does jiu-jitsu, I do jiu-jitsu. I try and do jiu-jitsu 3 days a week. A lot of the times I try and incorporate like one private a week because then I can really kind of dive into a specific skill. But 3 days a week, I need to start focusing on foundational components, and I can't get wrapped up in all these sexy things. So I need to first gain these skills before I can even think about the other ones.
Dude, we're the opposite, right? I do jiu-jitsu every day, you know, and yeah. I like fitness, and I was doing CrossFit for a while every day with like all the craziness. Dude, I was wrecked. Yeah. I was absolutely fucking wrecked. And now, Rob McDonald, have you heard of Rob McDonald? Bobby Maximus, he used to run Jim Jones.
Oh yeah. I know Jim Jones. Yeah.
We fought back in the day in 2007. He beat me up. He can't get over it. Like so a post, we're friends now, but a post comes on Instagram every week about our fight. I'm like, dude, come on, man. I was 13 years ago. Get the fuck over it. And he makes fun of me in the post. Like, I don't care, but we're buddies. And literally he just has me doing like I deadlift, I press, I might squat, I might bench. I don't do, there's nothing complex, and I feel so much better physically. I don't feel crushed.
Yeah. And what you just said, vice versa for me, meaning right. When I do jiu-jitsu, when I try and go over 4 or 5 days a week, and when I try and because dude, there's some sessions where you really get after it, right? And there's some other sessions where maybe the guy's in the room, you're having some good rolls, but it's like, you know what I'm talking about. When you're in a room both. And there's a couple guys who are just really getting after it. Dude, I get beat up, and it's because I'm not as exposed to it as you have been for a long time. And it's really interesting, the dynamic between the two, where you need both. I've been in jiu-jitsu schools where I'll be rolling with the black belt, and they'll be technically superior to me. I'm not saying they're not.
Of course. But
all of a sudden, after we're rolling for, let's just say 3-4 minutes, they can't breathe anymore. And that's my opportunity for them. I'm not sitting here saying I'm going to kick their ass.
I know what you're saying.
But because they can't breathe, that's where I have an opening.
Their fitness lacks.
Yeah.
Right? Their fitness lacks, and they can't keep that. Even if it's not a hard pace, they're not keeping the pace because they've allowed, there's two things going on, right? You have to have the technical skill and you have to have the fitness. And if you don't have one of them, you're fucked.
Yeah. And here's a really interesting concept about jiu-jitsu that I find really fascinating, is that the better you get, the more encouraged you are to be less fit. So it's a really interesting dynamic. In CrossFit or training, the better you get, it's still really hard. I'll get people ask me all the time, hey man, like, you have the tip of the spear. Is it really hard? Yeah, it continues to get harder because you get better, right? And so you can go faster. But in jiu-jitsu, the better you get, the more opportunities you have to put people in appropriate positions to control them and regain your recovery. So if you're really good, and let's just say you're rolling with the guy who's maybe not at the exact same level, hypothetically, you could find positions to purposely slow you down. And so what happens there is that you stop gaining the same cardiovascular skills you do at white belt because you're fucking going all over the place, right? And so I think, especially at the higher belts, it's even more important to gain your strength conditioning outside of it, because it's encouraging you to move fast versus find your positions. You get what I'm saying there?
Because I can go in the room, in just about every room in the whole world, probably, right? Because my skill level is so high with jiu-jitsu that I could probably just chill through the roll. Even if Bushesh is in the room, maybe I do one roll with Bushesh, or maybe I don't, right? But that's fine because I'm allowed to do that. I'm a black belt, right? I don't have to pick the hardest rolls. And as black belts, we can start to find our way into that just every day. I go and I train for an hour. I sweated. There's sweat. I feel like I worked, but I didn't really work like I was working before.
Yeah.
Because my skill level is so high that, I'm going to sweep you. You can't handle that. Pass your guard. You can't handle that. Right. And then I'm going to mount you over and over and over again, and I'll never work.
Yep. And I'm going to I'm going to smother the shit out of you, and it's going to suck for you, but for me, it's not that. So what I've really been working on with some of these jiu-jitsu guys that I work with is this whole concept that if you're a black belt and you're fighting a black belt in a tournament, you're going to be at relatively the same, skill levels.
Right.
And the guy who could win is the one that could keep a pace at a consistent pace the entire time. And what's really unique for these jiu-jitsu guys that roll with me is that strength and conditioning never becomes a factor. So I can keep
you
for me.
Yeah.
Now, I want to caveat that by saying I have gotten my ass kicked plenty of times, but that's because it's not a strength conditioning thing. It's a technical thing.
Which will then make you tired, right? Like if you're getting put behind all the time and you're like, oh God, and your mind's going nuts, you're going to get tired, right?
Yeah, or
I understand.
It chokes me. I'm tapping out, right? But I wonder what could happen for these black belts who get inspired to go to a gym and turn on a clock for 5 minutes and just crush burpees. I mean, just go at it. And when you take that mindset and you bring it back onto the mat, I think you're going to be winning. I really do.
Dude, you look at the masters level Brazilian jiu-jitsu competitions, it's all about fitness. It's all about fitness. Like the adult levels, where the best of the best are competing, everyone's fit. Everyone's fit. And then it becomes about technical skills again.
Yeah. If you look like Andre Gaval, he seems fit as hell.
Dude. Yeah. Everyone's fit at the top. But when you look at masters tournaments, it all comes down to fitness. The whole tournament comes down to fitness because one guy is going to get tired and the other guy is not. And that's literally what it is. And you can be 30 times better than somebody, but if you don't beat them in the first 2 minutes, you are fucked.
Dude. And so I work a lot with the police departments. I'm sure you've done a lot of work with police departments as well. And my goal is, look, I'm not talking about jiu-jitsu. I'm not an expert there. I don't claim to be an expert there, but I am, quote, an expert in strength conditioning. And I'll just sit down with them and talk through. I mean, dude, if you're a cop and you're chasing someone down and you get to them and you can't breathe, I mean, you can't think, right? Because I mean, I know you've been, and so if we can improve the strength conditioning across the board, across jiu-jitsu athletes, across law enforcement, across whoever, there's going to be a benefit there. I think it's pretty hard to, and so I think for us, what's been really helpful is just designing a program that's the most efficient for someone 3 days a week who has an hour a day. And that's the program that we put out to a lot of law enforcement communities and our communities.
It's amazing, but that's really what people want.
Yeah.
For the most part, most people don't want to be you, right? Like they think it's cool. They like to look at you and go, damn. And they like to maybe imagine like, hey, maybe, but they're not really trying. At the end of the day, they're not trying to be Jason Khalipa. They're not trying to be a CrossFit Games winner. You know, they're just trying to be fit.
Yeah. And so that's what we put out a lot of tools. So, our digital products, we've heavily expanded in digital products, and we're about to announce we're opening 3 new locations in Southern California, which is really exciting for us. And that's through a collaboration with a partner. And, we're just trying to spread fitness. And, we're rolling out this new program that's just strength and conditioning. And it's really with the intention of helping people just live better, man, get off their butt and just get after it.
It's such, and like we were talking about earlier, doing hard shit's good. It's so good for adversity, right? You can come back to your time on the bar when you think you couldn't lift one more, like, nope, I don't have it. And then your coach, all right, you're going to get mad at me here. Are you ready? Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. I got a Peloton and I fucking love my Peloton. And I think I love my Peloton because of the coach.
Yeah.
Right. Because of the coach. She's made me fucking love it. Because I was riding one day, and right when I was like, okay, this is it, I'm done. Right. Like I can't keep this pace up that she's asking me to keep. Yeah. Right when I was about to turn that knob down and slow down, she looks up, she stops on her bike. She looks at the screen. She goes, hey, what if you fucking had to? And I was like, oh, God damn. And then, right? Like, and like, but that's what we're talking about here, right? Like your coach looks at you, you're done. You're not lifting that bar again. And your coach goes, yo, Jason, what if you had to?
Yeah.
Right? What if you had to? And then you're like, oh, fuck yeah, I can. If I had to, if my daughter had leukemia, of course I would lift this fucking bar.
Yeah. Yeah. And just learn those skills. That's the best part about fitness, right? Is just overcoming these micro doses of adversity that then start to really build you up. And that's why you look at some of these guys, like David Goggins is a good example. He preaches fitness hard. But what people don't realize is he's using fitness as a catalyst to help him in all the other areas of his life. And same with us. So,
yeah, man.
I do think that if people aren't training jujitsu, or, in CrossFit, both of them have their pros. Both of them are challenging to get started in. Both are. Because they require someone to get a little uncomfortable, specifically in jiu-jitsu. One of the challenges of jiu-jitsu is getting started is really tough.
It's intimidating. It's very intimidating.
It took me a long time to want to do it because you have to have that, white belt mentality where, you're walking into a new thing, you got sweaty dudes rolling all over you, and it's tough. But over time, the rewards are huge.
You know who they just started at one of my schools are Matt and Sri Chan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They're at one of my locations,
Yeah, I love those guys.
They're great. And I'm sure it's so hard, like, especially for like guys like you and Matt, right? Like you're strong. You're very strong. You can physically for I don't know how long now, decades, right? Yeah. You've been able to physically handle other males, and we haven't, like, let's not get by this. This is a huge thing for males ever since we were little kids, right? Like, oh, I can throw the ball higher than you. Oh, I can shoot. I can run. I can, right? There's this pecking order thing. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's good, but it exists, right? So really strong guys, you and Matt, right? To get over that. Because look, man, there's a 150-pound kid. If you've never done jiu-jitsu before, I don't care how strong you are. He's 16, 17 years old. He's going to tie you in fucking knots.
And part of me was inspired by that, right?
Yeah.
And you have to have a certain mindset, which I think is really cool. Because you get on the mat, you're super strong. I was the guy who would have somebody in my side control. I'd bench press him off, and that dude just grab my arm, whip around, arm bar me, and I'd be like, "Son of a bitch," And,
right.
And but instead of getting mad, like, "Oh, this is stupid," right? You need to be inspired and saying, "Hey, obviously this person has a skill set that I desire to have," and the best thing that I ever did was just get started. I was driving on the freeway one day and I saw this retirement slogan. It was like from Prudential or some like retirement Morgan Stanley. And just no one ever complained about starting the retirement fund too early or something like that. And I started thinking about that. Like, no one's ever going to complain about developing. It's just getting started. That's the tough part.
Yeah.
I look back on it. I have 4 years of skills, right? And I feel a lot more comfortable on the mat and I enjoy it. And so I'm glad I got started.
Yeah. And I think it's the same thing with fitness for people, right? Like, they're like how often do you hear, oh, I'm going to get in better shape before I come, right? Or same thing with jiu-jitsu, right? I'm going to get in shape and then I'm going to come in. It's like, no, man, just come in.
Yeah.
Just come in. What do you say to those people? How do you get, like, if someone's listening to the podcast right now, right? And because, Jason Khalipa, right? They see your name. They're like, oh shit. Yeah. I'm going to go start something. What do you, and in their mind, they're like, I'm going to get in better shape. I'm going to, I'm going to go for walks and things like that. And then when I get in better shape, I'm going to go to an NC Fit, or I'm going to go to an Easton. I'm going to go to whatever jiu-jitsu school is next to me. What do you say to the person to get them in the school right now?
Well, I think at this point in your life, if you're listening, you're probably in your 20s, 30s, 40s. And if you haven't regularly exercised by now, me telling you that you're going to get better blood markers, Me telling you that you're going to put money in the bank so that God forbid anything happens in your life, you're further away from this sickness and, requiring, becoming a diabetic, right? Me telling you those things, I don't know if it's really going to motivate you, because by now you already knew, hey, if you want to look better at the beach, you got to put in the work in nutrition and fitness, right? But what if we hit it with a different angle, like the one that you and I have been talking about this whole podcast, more or less, where it's, what is it going to do to help you overcome things in your daily routine, right? If you get into the gym in the morning and you crush a workout, imagine how you're going to approach everything else in your day. You're going to become a better husband. You're going to become a better father. You're going to become better at your job, because you are building this earned confidence through hard work, right? And so my motivation for anybody would be, you're going to look better. You're going to feel better. You're going to be a better human being, because you're going to learn to overcome adversity, which I think is huge. And the first step is whatever that first step is for you, meaning don't go too fast. I have been in the fitness space my entire life. I started working at the gym when I was 14 years old. And I've seen more people come in, get fired up on, their New Year's resolution, and then be gone after a month. So instead, don't worry about anything. Just start here. Take out soda out of your diet, start there, and start with doing a 10-minute walk every day. That's it. And then after a while, when you build up your confidence and you crush that for 2 weeks, don't do anything else. Then, either go ahead and look up our NC Fit app online, reach out to a coach nearby you, and then start doing it twice a week, and then grow to 3 times a week. But the worst thing you could do for anything is overcommit, because then you're going to feel like a failure. So start off super, super basic, like jujitsu. Once a week, I'm going to commit to a private session. That's it. Right? But if you commit to, dude, every day I'm going to go in 4 days a week, you're going to be so exhausted and overwhelmed, because that hasn't been something that's built into your daily routine.
That's such a good point. This is when people come to the school and they ask, how much is it to train unlimited? Because our prices are not different. You can come twice a week, or you can come every day. In the beginning, we tell them, hey, look, the price isn't going to change. Like, there's no difference in price. We base our prices off twice a week, 2 to 3 times. Please don't come more than that, right? Because you won't keep it up. And then you just won't be doing it.
Yeah.
So look, once you're in it, once you full Kool-Aid down the throat, right? Then okay, come as much as you want. Right. But your body's used to it. Your mind's used to it. It's part of your life, but right now, this everyday thing, the kid on Christmas syndrome happens. You play with it every day. They get a toy, play with it for 4 hours, never touch it again.
Yeah, same. Exactly. And with fitness, again, with fitness, eventually I want you to be doing, so like with my kids, we have a very simple rule in this house. Every single day, you move for 15 minutes a day. I don't care what you do. You can go jump on the trampoline. You can go play basketball. You can actually go in the garage and do like more of a fitness workout. But every day we move for 15 minutes a day, because we're human beings. We're required to move. But movement should just be something that's built into our life. It shouldn't be like a crazy thing, If you want to add some load to it, take a backpack, put a 20-pound plate in it, take some books, put in there, and add that when you're walking, so that now your spine is loaded. That's an even better tool instead of just being unloaded.
It's so crazy sometimes, I fall victim to it, with my kids. I have rules too. My rule number 1 is they have to do jiu-jitsu. So I don't care. They don't have to compete. They don't have to be champions. They don't do anything. But jiu-jitsu, live in my house, jiu-jitsu is how it goes.
How old are your kids?
I have a 10-year-old and a 6.5-year-old.
Okay.
So, and they love sports. So they're way into sports. So it's kind of cool. I have 2 boys, and I love sports. So, we have that bond. But even just the walking to school, man, I live in the nicest neighborhood that you could, not nicest, safest. I live in the safest neighborhood that you can live in, right? The danger of my kid, any danger for my kids? No. And sometimes I find myself just being lazy and letting them be lazy and and driving them. And it's no, man, this walk will be good for you.
Yeah.
Right? You'll get to bond with your friends because you guys do it together. You'll get your blood will be moving by the time you get to school. Just that start of the day is so amazing, right? Get out of the house, walk to school.
I agree. Dude, it's all good, man. That's yeah. And we're just trying to look, you and I were on the same path, right? We're just trying to get people moving, get people doing something and learn new skills, right? Get a little bit uncomfortable. And I think there's gonna be a lot of people I'm already seeing it, that are transitioning from CrossFit into jiu-jitsu and still maintaining strength conditioning, of course, but incorporating jiu-jitsu as a new skill. You know, I think what people fell in love with CrossFit was this idea of new skills, development, growth. I loved it, right? You PR your snatch, your clean and jerk. It feels good. You're learning something new. But then after a while, when you've been doing these every single day for well over a decade, it feels good to kind of switch it up and try something new. And I would go the same thing for jiu-jitsu. You know, I think if you're doing jiu-jitsu yesterday, I had one of my coaches come into our gym and I taught him a muscle up, right? A bar muscle up. And he was fired up. Like I haven't seen him that fired up because for him, it was a brand new skill he had never done before. And so I'd recommend go both ways. Yeah.
The new skill thing, right? The new skill thing is so amazing. I like for me with jiu-jitsu, John Donahar's revolutionized the sport. You know, with what he's done with his squad out there. And now he's put out these instructional DVDs of exactly what it is they do. And it was, I mean, it's new. It's like it's a system of how to walk through doing jiu-jitsu, right? It totally takes away the randomness of moves. It's like a little bit of like game theory. Like if this, then that. You know, and I've really, for the last 4 years, been studying it, 5 years. And man, it's just, now look, I have to limit myself, right? Like and I'm sure you have to do the same thing as a high level fitness CrossFitter, is like when I go and train now, I'm not allowed to do just what, in my mind, I'm not allowed to do just whatever I want to beat somebody, right? Like I was rolling with all of my blue belts last night, you know, or most of my blue belts. And I was like, okay, I'm going to work this back system, but I'm only allowed to do it. I'm a right-handed person. I'm only allowed to do it strangling on the left hand.
Yeah.
Which is awkward for me, right? Like, man, if I get over there and I strangle with my right hand, you're fucked. You know, like I only sit up
sweep to the left.
Right.
You know, like, I mean, I'm working on that, but I only do things, you know, that way.
I totally get it. But for you in CrossFit, you probably have to do things differently a little bit, right? Like you have to limit yourself.
Yeah, you know, or even better, like you could take a thruster and there's a variety of different techniques you could do that are slightly different based on the loading, based on the stimulus of the workout. And that's where you really get into the nuances, right?
Yeah.
What type of pull am I going to do? Butterfly, kip, what am I going to do? Why? How many sets? This, that. It's very interesting at the high level.
It's so interesting. Like it doesn't have to get stale. It only gets stale, like you were saying earlier with like how black, you know, how like with you and the black belts, because they're not doing fitness anymore.
Yeah.
Right. It only gets stale by the laziness of the human mind.
Yeah.
Right. It only gets stale. Now, if you want to always have that beginner's mindset, you know, like always that new challenge, like I mean, nobody can deny that you're doing it because look what you're doing. Right. Like then nothing has to get stale. In my opinion.
Yeah. So, I'm all about it.
Yeah, man. Hell yeah. I really appreciate it, man. Like, where can people find you? Where can, you know, like where can they find NC Fit? Where can they find Jason Khalipa? Give a shout out.
So, I mean, if you have iTunes or the App Store, you know, we have an NC Fit app. I think if you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner out there and you're looking for a program to follow, you can download our app, follow the NC 45 track. It has daily videos. I think it's great for you. I really do. And if you just want to check us out, you can find Jason Khalipa, Instagram, website. I'm going to start producing more YouTube content. And so I'd say the app and then Jason Khalipa on all these different channels would be great.
Cool, man. Sounds great. I really appreciate you coming on. I was so excited when I just hired this team that are going out for me and finding people. And like, I saw your name on it. I was like, man, that's going to be really cool. I doubt he's going to do it, but you know, like, but when I saw it, when it came through on my email, I was like, oh, fuck yeah. So I really appreciate it, man.
Hey man, it's been great catching up. We got to talk more. I think it's really, there's a lot of synergies on the business side. We need to talk about the business side of what you do on our podcast. Yeah, let's do it. As soon as we hang up, I'll go on Instagram and I'll send you my number. So I hate only communicating on social media. Let's do it. That's for people that don't know each other, right? You know? Yeah. So I'll send you my phone number if you send it back. So I really appreciate it, man. All right, brother. Have a great day. You too, man. All right, guys, go out there. Everybody find your power.